There's a booth at McLaren's, same one, every episode, 8 years. And right now there's exactly one guy sitting in it, alone. Ted Mosby, staring at a single ticket in his hand in the exact spot where the best nights of his life used to happen. Nobody's coming to sit down. That's the whole thing. Nobody's coming. Everyone calls this the darkest episode of How I Met Your Mother. And they're right. It is. But almost nobody talks about what comes after. Most people stop watching about 5 minutes too early. Because buried inside the saddest scene this show ever made is, and I mean this, the single most hopeful thing Ted Mosby ever does in 9 seasons. So you think this is an episode about a hallucination, a weird little time travel gimmick. It's really an episode about a door Ted is standing in front of and cannot make himself knock on. Pull up a seat under the yellow umbrella. Let's decode the darkest episode of the show and the thing it's actually trying to tell you. Quick ground rules, because this one's built on a trick and I don't want to give the trick away too early. Season 8, Episode 20. It's called The Time Travelers. And the second you notice that title, you should already feel a little uneasy. Because this is a grounded sitcom about 5 people in a bar. Time travel is not a thing that happens here, so when it shows up, that's the first quiet signal that something in this episode is very, very wrong. Let me set the scene fast. We open like any other night. Barney's trying to drag Ted out to something called Robots versus Wrestlers. And if you've watched a while, you know this one. Years back, the whole gang went together, and they made a pact. Every year, no matter how far life pulled them apart, they'd come back and do this dumb, wonderful thing together. And I want to sit on that pact for a second, because it's doing more work than it looks like. That was the show promising you something. Not just that these 5 people liked each other, but that the drifting apart everybody experiences in their late 20s was not going to happen here. Not to them. Whatever else changed, there'd be one night a year where the booth was full again. That's the emotional weight sitting under a stupid robot fight. Hold on to it, and keep your eye on that ticket in Ted's hand. We're coming back to it. Then it starts getting strange. Barney explains his whole system for deciding if a night's worth it. He asks his future self, so Ted closes his eyes, opens them, and a version of Barney from 20 years in the future is just sitting there in the booth. Then a future Ted shows up too. And they all start arguing about whether Ted should go. Meanwhile, there's this goofy little side plot where Marshall and Robin are feuding over a cocktail that got named after her instead of him. Marshall gets stuck in the ladies' room. There's a dance-off. And honestly, it plays too big, too broad, like a cartoon of a sitcom bit. File that away too. It matters more than it looks. Then Ted spots a familiar face. A woman he met way back in season 1, years ago, sparks and everything, and he never got her number. And now, here she is again. Second chance. He walks over, and before he can even get a word out, 2 future versions of her appear and drag him away. One who eventually got sick of him, one who eventually got obsessed with him. Either way, it didn't work out. It never works out. And this right here is where the floor drops out, because none of what you've been watching is real. Ted finally decides to just go home. And he turns to Barney and asks why he isn't fighting harder to keep him out. And Barney looks at him and says it. Look around. You're all alone.
And you've been sitting here all night staring at a single ticket to Robots versus Wrestlers because the rest of us couldn't come out. Look around, Ted. You're all alone.
And then the episode quietly takes everything back. Barney was never there. That whole feud between Marshall and Robin over the drink, that happened 5 years ago. It's an old memory Ted pulled off the shelf and replayed. Marshall and Lily aren't at the bar, they're home, putting their baby to sleep. Robin and Barney are home too, planning their wedding. And Ted. Ted is sitting by himself in that booth. The same booth. One ticket to Robots versus Wrestlers in his hand, and nobody left to go with. The whole episode was a hallucination. Ted, alone, filling the empty seats with ghosts. Okay, so why does this one land so much harder than a normal sad episode? Let me actually name what's going on, because there's a real psychology to it. What Ted's doing has a name. It's nostalgia, but the heavy kind. The kind that stops being a warm memory and turns into a place you go to hide. He doesn't rebuild the old gang in his head because he's happy. He does it because the present is one empty booth and he can't stand to sit in it. And look at what his brain picks. He conjures the drink feud from 5 years back when nobody had drifted yet. He conjures the girl from season 1 when the whole group was young and single and out every night. Both of those are from the same era. His mind went shopping in a very specific year of his own life and brought back the good stuff. He's not remembering. He's hiding in his own past. And the part that gets me, honestly, is the booth itself. Same seat, same bar, everybody gone. Because I think we've all sat in some version of that booth. The group chat that just went quiet one day. The apartment everyone used to crash at. The table that used to be full. You know the one. There's something else in the hallucination worth noticing, and it took me a rewatch to catch it. Every single imaginary person in that booth is arguing about the same thing. Whether Ted should go out, whether he should try. Future Barney says go. Future Ted says go. The two future versions of that woman are both there to tell him it won't work out. He built an entire committee inside his own head just to have the same argument with himself that he's been having for 8 seasons. But this is where the viral videos about this episode all quit, and it's the exact moment the whole thing turns. Because of what Ted does with all that loneliness. It's the most important 5 minutes in the episode, and everybody talks right over it. Future Ted, narrating, says that if he could go back and live that night over, he wouldn't sit in the booth with ghosts. He'd do something else first. And we watch him imagine it. Running. Through the streets of New York, in the rain, to an apartment just a few blocks away. To a door. Behind that door is a woman he has not met yet, his future wife, the mother. And at this exact moment, she is 45 days away from walking into his life. And imaginary Ted knocks, and he just pours it all out to a stranger who has no idea who he is. He tells her they're going to meet in 45 days, that they'll fall in love, get married, have 2 kids, build a whole life together, and then he says the thing, that he came early because he wants those extra 45 days with her, every single one of them, that he'd even take the 45 seconds before her boyfriend shows up to punch him in the face, because he already loves her. And he's going to love her, in his words, till the end of my days and beyond. And then he doesn't do it. That's the gut punch hiding inside the gut punch. Ted doesn't actually run to her door. He can't. Not yet. He snaps back to reality, standing alone outside the bar. He slips the ticket into his pocket, and he walks home. The bravest, most open-hearted thing Ted Mosby ever says in the whole series. And he only says it in his own head. To a door he's too scared to knock on, 45 days early. So sit with what this episode is actually doing. It's not just showing you a lonely man. It's showing you a lonely man who has finally figured out exactly what he wants and exactly where she is and still can't move his feet. The darkness isn't the point. The darkness is the pressure. It's the thing squeezing him until the truth finally comes out, even if it only comes out as a daydream. And there's one more layer. It's the one that turned this from sad into something that honestly haunts me. Listen to the last line of that speech again. Till the end of my days and beyond.
I love you. I'm always going to love you. Till the end of my days and beyond. You'll see.
When this episode first aired, that just sounded romantic. Big, sweeping Ted being Ted. But if you've seen how the show ends, you know the thing we didn't know yet. The mother doesn't get to grow old with him. She gets sick. She passes. And years later, this speech, this throwaway daydream in the darkest episode, turns out to be the very first time the show ever quietly tells you she's going to die. Beyond his days, beyond hers. So this one scene is doing 2 impossible things at the same time. It's the moment Ted decides he's done living in the past. And it's the first crack of the ending that breaks everyone's heart. The most hopeful thing he ever says is stitched right onto the saddest thing that ever happens to him. In the same breath, in the darkest episode. That's not sloppy writing. That's the whole show folded into one scene. And if that wrecked you even a little, I already made the full case for her. For who the mother really was and why her quiet tragedy is the actual heart of this whole show. It's up on the channel. I'll link it. Go feel worse. You're welcome. But before you go, I want to talk about your booth, because I don't think this episode is really about Ted. This is the thing it leaves me with. We all keep a ticket in our pocket. We all have some version of that booth we keep going back to in our heads. The old friend group, the city you left, the stretch of your life when everyone was still around and nobody had moved on yet. And nostalgia feels like love. It feels warm. But sometimes it's just a nice place to hide from the fact that things changed and you haven't caught up to it yet. And the cruel part is that hiding there feels productive, like you're honoring something. You're not avoiding your life, you're just appreciating what you had. That's the story Ted would tell you about that booth, and he'd believe it. Meanwhile, she's 45 days away and a few blocks north, and he's sat in a chair talking to people who aren't there. The mother, later on, tells Ted something I think about a lot. She basically tells him she doesn't want him to be the guy who only lives in his stories, that life only moves forward. And that's it. That's the whole lesson buried in the darkest episode. Ted's real tragedy in that booth isn't that he's alone. It's that the door is right there, a few blocks away, and he's replaying old memories instead of walking to it. So maybe let this be your reminder. Stop replaying the booth. Whatever your version of that door is, the person you keep meaning to call, the thing you keep meaning to start, the life that's actually in front of you instead of behind you, go knock. You don't have to wait 45 days. And if any of that landed, if you've got a booth you're still sitting in, this channel is kind of all about getting up from it. We find the real human thing hiding underneath these characters every single week. So subscribe and pull up a seat. This one, the one that's actually moving forward. That's the Time Travelers. Not the darkest episode, the bravest one, wearing the darkest one's clothes. I'm decoding How I Met Your Mother, one character at a time. I'll see you in the next one.